Hi everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you're from. Okay. Brittany unfortunately is traveling today, so she may not be with us. We miss her dearly, obviously. And she's on her way to the Dominican Republic, so we'll have an update there. She's on out for a well, what we call Black Retreat. It's a high level masterminding, and we try to do these because we, do such heavy masterminding that if you do it in a completely different surrounding and in really lovely environment, it sort of brings out the best. I did mine not so long ago in Tulum, Mexico, which was out of this world. So I'm hoping she will get as much out of it as she possibly can. And knowing Brittany, she probably will. So we'll wait for a couple of minutes while people are still coming on. I have prepared this great webcast for you. It's about energy, vibrations, and atoms. I'll let people come on for a bit, okay? They're still coming on. Hi, everyone. And I'm still working out how to do things here. I'm going to try and share several things with you. Hopefully I can. Well, it works great. It doesn't, I'm sorry. We'll just have to, this is some things you can get, I don't know how to do a website first. Now I know. Didn't know how to do marketing. Now I know. This is always learning in progress. And so as we chop and change and try new software that just comes out, because they obviously get better, they're a little sort of teething technique that we may not actually have the hang of yet. So do bear with us with that. So yeah. Energy and vibrations. Okay, let's just start right into it. I'm a chemist. Okay, my initial degree is in chemistry, and this is because, as far as I was concerned, I'm just fascinated with the human body. But I did not want to be a doctor. I didn't want to heal people with the medicine world because I was very much already a natural person, and I didn't. I believe in medicine. We all need it, obviously. I mean, if we need to be operated on, I'm not going to sit there and say, I'm against it, etc., etc. I just happen to now have lived in France the last 30 years, and we are, number one over the States. We're above the States in taking medication for everything. I mean, so I came from England where, if you're really dying and got a heavy fever and just not feeling really very well, you take 2 aspirins, you go to bed, and we'll see you in the morning, sort of, see how you feel in the morning type attitude, to in France, where they take medicines for everything, from going to the bathroom to a little sniveling cold to everything. And I was just, but anyway, this was after my degree. So during my degree, I did chemistry because I happened to think it was fairly easy for me. And I loved biology, but there wasn't, as much biology unless you wanted to really go into the medical field later on. And I didn't want to do that, so I did as much as I could. And chemistry, as far as I was concerned, organic chemistry, which is in the body, etc., has about 10 equations, 10 reactions that go on, and they just sort of head off from there. So it was quite easy for me, in inverted commas. Obviously, I worked hard, etc., etc., etc. But it was something I enjoyed doing, so I didn't really think about, it as work. And I do remember there was this one course we did where we learned a whole load of stuff about plants and how, inside the plants, how this works and that worked. And it was just fascinating. But one thing that's always fascinated me is the human body, the way the body works. How you as a child, you learn to just walk. How do you do this? How does this happen? This is, never-ending questions that are always in my mind. So I thought, when I came across marketing, and I really was very scared when I came across marketing, because I thought, oh God, it's all with the sharks. It's got to be killer sales routine and stuff. And I do remember I was on a webinar. It was 3 o'clock in the morning for me, some sort of 8 o'clock US time, and this guy just kept saying how wonderful people we were, and we were wonderful beings, and how and he was going on to a bit of personal development stuff, and I was like, wow, I expected nothing like this when I entered this world. So in I trotted. And I really went down deep, deep, deep into this rabbit hole, and I'm still not out of that rabbit hole, and I absolutely adore it. So atoms. Now I have this thing where hopefully I can draw. I don't know whether you can see. Draw on my. This is very new for me, so I'm really sorry if you're not. I'll make this bigger. Okay, so we're drawing. Atoms are just. I have to do this. Oh, and I'm not drawing as I wanted to. And this is erasing. Yes. Okay, well, we'll have to draw it like this. Atoms. We're not drawing anymore. Okay. Oh, sorry. Atoms. I have to press these two. Oops. Okay. I got it. I got this sussed. Where's my page? Here's my page. So we're not getting this sussed at all. And we're going to have a page on this one then. New document. Okay, just a blank document. Thank you. Okay, so atoms are like this. Okay. We'll just erase all that. Oh, great. Okay, here we go. Atoms are like this. This is an atom. We won't go into what's inside, the nucleus, the protons, the electrons, etc. We won't bother about this. But it bonds with another atom. Okay, and this, the bonding, is what really is important. This bit here. Okay, oops. This bit here is what really makes it important. And as I said last week on the Hangout, the more energy you give to this bond, the more it'll break up. So you can have water, for example, in the solid state. So it's, the atoms like this, and they don't have much energy, and you heat them. So you're transferring energy. And as you transfer this energy, they sort of vibrate more and more and more. They get into the liquid phase, and then you give them more energy, and it'll become steam. So they're in the gaseous phase, and that is, I think, a way that people can understand how when you transfer energy, you can vibrate at a different level. It doesn't mean to say the water hasn't changed. It's still the two molecules, hydrogen and oxygen, in the same matrix, but it changes state from the solid to the liquid to the gaseous phase. So really an important one, and it vibrates at different levels. Now, people say, I have a son who's very skeptical about all this, and I say, look, you understand how the moon has effects on the tides. Okay, so when the moon is here, it's high tide, etc., etc. So that is just common knowledge that tides are affected by moon. Well, it's common knowledge if you've lived near the sea, for seamen, etc., etc. I didn't know much about this until I went and lived near the ocean, because we're surrounded by tides. And sometimes there was absolutely no seafront because the tide was very high, and so you look at the moon, and etc., etc. So this is a way that I made my son try and at least acknowledge the fact that things can affect the human body beyond our control, as we, as 70% water, human body, are controlled by external influences. Internal, your mind, etc. also, but you can also be influenced by external forces. So Dr. Emoto, a Japanese scientist, did a study on rice grains and how your words have a certain energy level, vibrate a certain energy level. We'll look into that in a little bit more detail if you want. And of course, I was doing this and I wasn't sharing my screen, so you didn't see my atoms. Sorry about that, but basically, hold on, I can draw them here and just show them to you, okay? Basically, this is an atom, okay? And it'll bond to another atom, okay? And this is the bonding. This is the bond that actually gives energy. When you transfer energy, it'll be that vibrates to different frequency, okay? Sorry about that, I just thought, oh God. So, yes, I don't know whether we should go into the, yes, anyway, so your words will have a certain vibrational frequency. And I did print this out, but my son walked away with it just earlier on as we were discussing this, and I thought I could share my screen. So I'll put in the links for you to have a look at this. But anyway, there are certain vibrations. Words will have certain vibrations. This will affect your body. So For example, I don't know whether we can see this well. We won't be able to see it, and it's really, really sad. But anyway, there's it's like a funnel, I guess. It's like a funnel here, and you will have at the lowest vibrational, at about 20, this will be 1,000. Okay, this will be enlightenment. So up here you have Buddha, Jesus, and all sorts of prophets and renowned people, very few and far between. And at the bottom you'll have sort of guilt, shame, and it also changes color of the spectrum. So you have guilt, shame, anger is about 150, because when you're angry you're starting to get energy going. So whether it's good or bad anger, that's another thing, but you'll start to have some sort of frequency, and you'll get up to love. Love is about 500. Then you have gratitude, which is up here. So gratitude can be anywhere from 450 to 700. Okay, so it vibrates at this sort of level, and anything above gratitude is really getting into enlightenment. So you have this has been tested by Dr. Strong, who as I was showed last week, you do this and this, and if you say something true, then with the same force, I'm using this force and I'm not asking a question, I'm just getting a certain force. And if I say, hi, my name's John, it just breaks through because it's total rubbish. My name's not John. Okay, so if I do the same thing and just do this, and my name's Kat, it's really strong, and I can't pull that apart no matter how hard I try. So this is something you can try. You can try for yourself. And experiments were done to see where on the spectrum of ultimate consciousness energy vibrated. Certain words, certain emotions vibrated. And after that, Dr. Moto, a Japanese scientist, then he did this experiment on rice. But rice, the same thing to find out. He was trying to do this sort of experiment on the rice, but that meant that he had to, the conditions of the rice had to be the same. It was a lot of parameters, a lot of parameters to take into account when you're doing an experiment. You have to have a control experiment, and you have to have the same conditions for everything. It was very difficult for the rice grains because not every rice grain is identical. Okay, they're a bit like human beings. So it was very complex, and so he thought, well, I'll just do this experiment on water. So what he did was he put water in bottles, and then he had the word written on a paper and glued to the bottle. And sometimes he would also play something to the. I had all these lovely photos of. He played music, heavy metal to Mozart, to see how the water crystals would pan out, and then he froze them so that we, could have something to look at, to analyze. And it turns out that when you're playing, for example, heavy metal to a bottle of water, it just goes around in spirals. It has no structure to it. Whereas when you're playing Mozart, the most beautiful, like the snowflakes, those sort of crystals will form, and it was just the most beautiful snowflake. Or when you're saying, you're stupid, I hate you, and all this sort of stuff that we do say to ourselves, we affect our bodies because our vibration is very low here on the scale of ultimate consciousness, and also it affects the way the water crystals are. So because when you say I hate you and everything, it's just deformed. The thing is just deformed, and you can't possibly vibrate to, you can only vibrate at this sort of level when you're saying those sort of things to yourself. You can only vibrate here at these levels, and you can't vibrate up here at all until you start, acknowledging yourself, loving yourself, and being a little bit kinder to yourself. So you can't, you'll never get out of that until, and also your surroundings. If you're trying to get yourself out of this and saying positive things to yourself, and people around you like, you're a bit of a hoity-toity, who are you to say you're great? What do you mean? Or whatever they might say. You might, for example, begin to like beautiful things, or you're living in a heavy metal environment, and you might suddenly discover Mozart and think, oh my goodness, it's just amazing, just and you're not really disturbing anyone with it, but they're seeing that you're changing these people. We're going back to the naysayers that we were saying last week, and they're just trying to keep you at this level and bring you down to this level and keep you at this level, whereas your atoms, you're giving more positive energy, or energy anyway, you're transferring energy, whether it be because you're listening, so you're getting this different energy, and you're transferring energy. Energy cannot be created, it's only transferred. So either you're giving energy because you're transferring your energy to whatever it is, and you have to fill up your batteries again. Okay, we can't be plugged in like, a telephone or whatever, computer. So you always have to recharge your batteries, and this is why Brittany's off to a lovely live event, and which is why we go to events, to recharge our batteries, to mix with like-minded people who are more up here. Okay, the ordinary people are down here. It's been said that I think the country, the States in the 40s, 50s, 1940s, 50s, was at about 450, which is one of the higher level ones. But I often think of the States as, a go-getter country, whereas I can assure you here in France, they do all tend to moan. They never tend to, they just make things really more complicated than they need to be. They're not very pragmatic. Whereas the English are very pragmatic, down to earth. It doesn't matter if we haven't got the frills on, as long as the basics are understood, and we can get on with it. And I recall this when I was, my kids were learning to write, and I would like, well, you've written a sentence, okay, that's great. You place the letters correctly, it's readable. And the French would be like, they have these. Do I have one? Yes, I do. Here, obviously, I have some. They have these lines like this, okay, a lot of these. Oh, I'll put it this way, and and the D can only be 3 interlines, and you have to have it so special. And I don't recall learning that in England. As long as we could do them we had to have a certain way of writing, obviously, but we didn't have 2 interlines or whatever. We had a little square, and if we could do it in the square, then that was pretty cool. But the French are a little bit more pernickety about this, and it's true that people often say don't worry about your environment, just get on with it. But your environment has so much influence on how you deal with yourself and how you try and cope with all this. So if you're trying to give all this lovely energy, Mozart energy, to your body, your surroundings, you want everything to be whatever, and you're living with heavy metal people who tend to just I don't know, maybe what's the name of that biking group, the bikers, the Hells Angels, type people, and you decide you want to be with Mozart people as well. There's a whole lot of energy is needed to move from one environment to the next, and obviously you're going to have to leave those people behind, and those experiences and the things that you were possibly doing in that kind of group. I'm using a bit of an extreme example to prove a point. And it is true that as you go through these stages, obviously you're moving up the ladder, as it were, okay, the ladder of ultimate consciousness. Yes, it takes a lot of mental energy to sort of get yourself, from guilt and shame. Shame is the most lowest vibrational energy, and I lived in shame for years. And I brought that upon me, etc., etc. There's tons and tons of, reasons, excuses, whatever you want to do, but your victim mentality until you get your butt out and try and do something about it. And whether you take responsibility or not is neither here nor there. There are still certain barriers that will be there, and that will, prevent you from moving forward until got another barrier. Okay, you just get better and better at crossing these barriers. And I had a lovely talk with Steve the other day, a friend of mine, Steve Herbert, who's also part of this group, who's a great we mentor each other. And he said, well, it's coming, so you just say, oh, hi, well, welcome, we'll talk tonight, can I just put you on the side? And just the fact that he said that. And he said a lot of good things to me. Oh, you come a long way, it's coming, what to do with it, blah, blah, blah. And so, yeah, I did just that. I said, right, talk to you tonight, which means that, I could get on with the rest of the day. And that night we could have a discussion. It wasn't like, oh my God, immediately cave in with this guilt trip or whatever it might be. It's just, okay, I know this is happening. I know there's an issue, and we'll get back to it tonight. And so when you get to it, you're calm and you're sitting there and you're mellowed out. You've done all your daily stuff. You've done your daily stuff in love and gratitude and how your day's supposed to go, right? And so when you look at that, you can deal with it with one step back. Maybe take an objective point of view as opposed to being so subjective. And all this is really hunky-dory. It's really a much easier and nicer way of doing things. Okay, so I know I've flown over a whole load of things, but basically what you need to do is, we've got two atoms, okay, A and B, that are linked together, or H and O, to make water, whatever it is. And this, if you're if you don't have much energy, you're in a solid state and it's not vibrating very high, and so you'll just be solid and won't move. Okay, you'll just be there, and you're probably at this level, not very high up. Okay, but when you give energy to this, okay, how you give it is, as I say, you can just sit there and listen to Mozart. You can sit and meditate. Meditation quietens the mind, quietens all this down. And so when you have a look at yourself, really, you come out of meditation, you are up here somewhere. You just are. So the idea of going back all the way to there is a bit of a, you don't really want to do it. Initially, you will do it. But, there comes a time when you're like, no more, stop. And, Brittany had a very honest, discussion with us last week about how, with her husband, that was the way it was. And with my husband, it was also that way. And I'm afraid to say we did have to part ways, because that's just the way it was. Now he's meditating, and I'm so happy for him for that, because it means his outlook has changed. And so with the children, he's much better. It's a bit of a personal life, but there you go. So I do think that all this is really, really so important for yourself, for your children, for people around you. Can you imagine if at work, as opposed to going to work with a acid in your stomach going, ooh, and all this horror going into you, you just go in there with a skip in your step, and you're like, yeah, what's going to happen today? I'm really excited. However that happens to be for you, I think that is just primeval importance to me. It was something that I remember I used to temp when we were in Paris. I would do some temping jobs, earn money, and go traveling. And in one of these temping jobs, the guy said to me, "You're always bon pied bon oeil." And I just arrived in France, and although I could speak French, I didn't really know anything apart from 1960s French, what my parents spoke. Okay, so bon pied bon oeil literally means good foot, good eye. And I was like, is this good? Is this bad? Anyway, I just smiled at the guy and walked back in, and did whatever. And I had to wait for my husband to come back from his work, to ask him, what does this mean? There were no mobile phones, at that time. Can you imagine? So when he walked in the door, I just said, what does this mean? What does this mean? And he says, oh, you're always chirpy, you're always jovial, laughing, happy, go lucky. And so I felt really happy about that, because this is what I try and do. And although I'm only temping in that company, I thought it was part of my job. Well, I generally am chirpy, but anyway, I thought, I give my all. If I'm working with this company, I give it my all. It was like this was my company for me, and I do whatever it takes to send that message, to do whatever. So all these things were really important to me, have always been. So the reason you come down is, as I say, you might be listening to Mozart with heavy metal people, and there are more heavy metal people around, and you're just like, oh, well, to just go with the flow, I'll just do heavy metal headbanging and, drink beer and whatever it might be, to just have a bit of peace of mind. And then you wake up one day and you're like, well, I don't like beer and I don't like heavy metal. I need to, get back to Mozart and start, whatever it is. So you invariably, anyway, will be drawn to those sort of people or those sort of activities within your realm of scope, because that's just the way things are for you. And then you have a choice then. Do I take that step and go on this path of enlightenment, which, is this path here, ultimate consciousness? Do I carry on this? Or do I just give up and stay, and I gave up many a time. Many a time I did not take my head out of the sand. Many a time I did not look. Many a time I just, thought I was doing the best thing, but in fact I was not. And I was being untrue to myself. And so, I was not the best mother I could have been. I was not the best wife I could have been. I was not the best human being I wanted to be. So sometimes it's best to just, step out and get on this path of enlightenment, get this transformational energy to get you from the solid state to the liquid to the gaseous, and to just shine and radiate and be you. So I've ruffled on a bit. I understand that. I hope this has been a bit clearer. I think it'll be clearer. I'm going to put links to where you can get these. This is a course I made in my Delightfully Divorced blog. I will give the first module free now, and you can have access to this, okay? Because I think it's so important. I did also do a self-esteem video, which is really good fun. I learned that at the A-Fest. But anyway, that's another story, and I will put the link for the video. I have enjoyed this immensely, and I hope you have a lovely time, Brittany. So happy for you. Can't wait to see you. Bye for now.